During the English Civil War, a musketeer using a matchlock musket would take roughly 30 seconds to load his weapon. But if he was caught with his musket unloaded and was forced to fight hand to hand, what could he do? Like the pikemen of the era, he would also be armed with a sword held in a scabbard, both attached to a baldric over his shoulder. No, not that baldric. A pikeman was safest and most dangerous when in a vast pike block, protected by more pikemen in front, behind, and on either side. If forced to fight hand to hand, he would more often than not drop his pike, draw his sword, and get stuck in. Like the pikeman, the musketeer was equipped with a cheap and nasty sword, called a tuck or backsword. And to make matters worse, they were not trained in how to use it. These swords were cheaply and crudely made, and had a minimum of protection at the hilt. In fact, sources during the war stated that soldiers used their swords not for fighting the enemy, but for chopping wood. So if they didn't use their swords for hand-to-hand fighting, what would they use? After all, the bayonet would not come into existence for another 30-odd years. What about their bandolier? They could take this off and whack an enemy over the head with wooden bottles full of gunpowder. Painful, but not fatal. Well, what the musketeer would do reflects the nature of the musket they wielded. The matchlock musket of the English Civil War was produced in the tens of thousands. It had to be simple, rugged, and survived being knocked about by badly trained and poorly disciplined troops. In essence, it has a lock, a stock, and a barrel, with very few working parts. There is not a huge amount that can go wrong. Now the musket is heavy and cumbersome, but in the 17th century, muskets would have been heavier than their modern replicas. In fact, musket rests were used at the start of the war as the guns were so heavy, but this made them even more useful to the musketeer for hand-to-hand fighting. When an officer or sergeant wanted their musketeers to charge into hand-to-hand fighting, an order was given: "Club your butts!" Men would ignore their swords, reverse their muskets, wield them above their head, and fall on upon the enemy. When they reached the enemy, they would swing these lumps of wood, often with a metal strip on the butt, at the heads of the enemy. Now, struck on the head by a fiercely swung musket is going to do just as much damage, if not more, than a sword thrust or a cut. So there we have it. If you find yourself as a musketeer with no time to reload, just club your butts and fall on. If you love all things English Civil War, click here for our video on the horrifying death of a royalist soldier who had both his hands cut off. As always, thanks for watching.